it's a very interesting point, that because you have to kind of grow a bit of a thick skin, when you go through the startup process. You've got to suffer. You've got to feel the pain, because if you don't learn to deal with pain, it's going to be a long and hard journey for you. If you just kind of outsource things like, other people can solve these problems for me, you're never going to learn resilience, and you're going to run out of money before you get to a point that's feasible for you. So I think you've put it well. You've got to first go and suffer. You first got to go and try and do some things for yourself.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new setup look season of the Hope It Helps podcast. I have a very, very special guest with us today, Mr. Hermann Woithe. Herman, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Khalid.
Herman, so for the people who don't know, just to give you guys some background on how me and Herman met. So me and Herman are part of the Founders Connect network, which I'm an ambassador for. And about a week or 2 weeks ago, the chat was active. Everyone was, someone put a question in the chat that was like, what's everyone struggling with? And some people are like, contracts, legal, funding, raising. Everyone had their own issues. And what I said was lead gen. And Herman actually was kind enough to, reach out to me. And he took the time to make a short video for me. He analyzed my landing page. And then after sitting down and having a meeting with him, I realized, this is the guy I need to work with. So just to give you guys a disclaimer on who Herman is and what he does. But before we get into everything, Herman, would love to hear a bit more from you about your background, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. So I'm new to Dubai.
Yeah, welcome. 4 months, right? Yeah, just a couple of months.
Couple of months,
yeah.
South African originally. And, I've been worked in the telecoms industry most of my life.
Yeah.
And then I, went on my own about 4 years ago. Started an agency. Wanted to kind of learn all of the functional skills. That when you're in a corporate, you have people doing stuff for you. It's like you say, do this, do that, and it happens. And I wanted to get to that point where I can do stuff so that I can work online and I can work from anywhere.
Sure.
That was kind of the long-term plan. And learned a whole lot of stuff in the process. And I've been living as an expat for many, many years. Lived in Mozambique, lived in Uganda, lived in the US, and the last place we came from was in Asia, in Cambodia. So lived in Cambodia for 2.5 years, and now we're in Dubai, and hopefully we're going to be here for a while. Because it's the energy of this place is just amazing. It's just getting involved with Founders Connect, and it's just a wonderful vibe. And I was saying to someone the other day, the kind of culture that you find here with everybody that's here is kind of here for the same kind of roughly the same reason. Like, hey, let's do something. Let's grow, let's build. And it's a wonderful environment to be in, so I'm very excited to be here.
Well, on behalf of all of Dubai, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Herman. A warm welcome. We hope you're here for a very long time as well.
Thank you.
So, Herman, I wanted to start our conversation today. You've traveled around the world. You worked in a lot of different places, but I wanted to start on your telecom experience, because I've actually never spoken to someone on the podcast who has experience in that world. I don't know how it works, because from my perspective, an outsider's perspective, when it comes to telecom, I feel like there's a lot of government involvement, because these are telephone connections and privacy and security, and how do you build the infrastructure for stuff like this? So could you just walk us through that telecom experience, and how does that world even work?
How much time do you have?
I have a lot of time.
Yeah, it's a big world, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like anything. As soon as you get involved, as you go deeper and deeper, you realize how complex it can be, right?
Sure.
So the two areas that I was involved in, in the years that I worked in telecom. I started out in early 2000s, building cell phone towers. Started with a contractor and kind of, found my way from there. Then got involved with wireless networking. Learned a lot about wireless networks. And then in 2009, fiber came to Mozambique, and that was there was a whole fundraising experience which we could talk about if there's time.
For sure.
And then kind of slowly everything went over to fiber. In terms of the world, it's a regulated environment. You've got to have a license, and especially with fiber, I mean the guys in the industry could tell you there's so many things that can go wrong. There's so many things that you've got to kind of collaborate with your competition to build infrastructure, because if you build it on your own, the business models don't work, and so on. So it's a big and complex kind of problem to solve. But it's what I loved about telecoms is the business model. Is you sell something once and you keep on billing for it.
That's
right.
That's true.
So, I mean,
that's true.
That's the best kind of revenue that you can
absolutely. Yeah,
get, right?
For sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of the good about it. The tough part about telecoms is the cost. To build infrastructure. It's an expensive industry.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to get investors to kind of buy into the vision, and then to build the infrastructure out with you.
So when it comes to telecoms, is it just like, because I think about it kind of like a bank. So to open a bank, not only do you need a significant investment and cash and so on,
right.
but you need like. I guess my question is, could I tomorrow, let's say me and you decide, we're like, Herman, you know what? I think we could do another telecom company here. You can't just. It's not like starting any other business,
no, it's
right?
not.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. So there's if you're looking at a wireless, any kind of wireless kind of business. I mean, there's a finite resource called spectrum, right?
Okay.
So radio spectrum. If you're on a mobile network. The mobile networks we have here, they each have an allocated piece of radio spectrum, which is basically their license. Okay. And they pay millions for that license.
So is that like a channel?
It's a channel, yeah.
Okay.
They pay for the channel, and then potentially they have 2 or 3 different channels, one for voice, a couple for data potentially, and that's the big cost. Okay. So you've got to buy that. And then, because it's such an expensive industry, so, governments usually protect their incumbents, right?
Sure.
Because you can't have, a classic example is you cannot make WhatsApp calls here.
True.
Why is that?
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, it's because the government's protecting the voice revenue of the mobile operators. Because
is that why?
That's basically the reason.
Okay.
They're protecting that voice revenue, because these companies have spent tons of money building that infrastructure, and if everybody is just WhatsApp calling, then it's a big loss for those companies.
Oh, you just blew my mind. I had because I always wondered, because when you travel to other places like Europe, the States, and so on, you can. So it's interesting that in those markets, they're not as protected, but maybe they're not as protected, thinking out loud right now, because of the size of the market.
Yeah, that's what I suspect as well. I mean, it's usually in smaller markets. If you think about the geography here, okay, it's a vast country, and some areas are sparsely populated.
Yes.
Okay, so people expect wherever they go in the country to have coverage.
True.
Right. So the mobile operator's got to go and build a tower in the middle of the desert where 5 people pass through every day, but that tower costs the same as a tower they built in the middle of Dubai. Right?
Okay.
So that cost needs to somehow be absorbed. Okay. So maybe a tower here, right, in the middle of town, has a lot of traffic, so it pays for itself, every day. But those towers out there, they run at a loss.
Interesting. Okay.
So there's a and most of the time, I would imagine the mandate that you get when you buy your license is that you have to cover all of these different areas,
Okay. Oh, that's part of
your
it.
license agreement.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So
okay, you guys want this? You got to build
Exactly.
here, here, and here.
Right. So that operator's in for a ton of money.
Damn.
And they know that, half my infrastructure is never going to make money, but I have to do it because my license says I must.
That's so interesting. This is all
Yeah.
brand new to me. I had no
Yeah.
idea. So something you said earlier that was interesting is you have to work with your competition to
Yeah.
build the infrastructure.
Right.
So you guys are like, let's say this is going to cost $100 million. You're going to put in 50. I'm going to put in 50. We both need it to operate our businesses, or these are different, like kind of like this. It's salat, and do we both need it to have a chance for this to work?
Right.
So then, does the competition between telecom companies come on the second stage in terms of the services, all those add-ons? Is that what it comes down to?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
That's where they compete. So think about it. So if you had to build, and I'm sure there's plenty of fiber already, say between Dubai and Abu Dhabi, okay? That's 120 kilometers.
About, yeah.
Okay. So if Etisalat said, okay, we need to build a fiber connection from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, it's going to cost them, I don't know, $50 million or whatever the number is, okay? Then Du comes and says, yeah, we have to do the same, okay? So you're doubling that investment cost for fiber, okay? So instead of both companies paying for that, for their own fiber, running literally next to each other along the same highway, doubling the work of digging and burying the fiber, it makes a lot more sense to say, hey, let's put one big duct in there, and one of these sleeves in the duct you use and I use the other one.
Okay.
So you're sharing the duct that the
Okay.
fiber goes in, and you share that cost.
Okay.
Where the fiber goes in and where it comes out the other side, it sits on that operator's equipment, so they don't, interfere with each other in any way there, but they share this duct infrastructure, for instance.
Okay. Would the dream scenario be in an ideal world to have your own?
Yeah, but then you've got to look at the cost of it,
Oh, exactly.
And
It's
that's
not
where it
feasible
doesn't
anymore.
make sense. Especially here, if you've got to, build, fiber into, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or something, and you're running through, hundreds of kilometers where that fiber is not being monetized, it's going to take you 20 years to recoup that investment. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make financial sense.
Sure.
Right? So, and you've got to also ask yourself is, where's the competition for these operators? They don't compete in infrastructure. I mean, I started working in the cell phone industry. I was selling cell phones in 1994 when cell phones came to South Africa. So July 1994, cell phones came to South Africa. I got involved in that industry. So I learned quite a bit about that side of it, during that time. And the competition is, and at the time, when they were just rolling out, when they knew networks, then the infrastructure is a competitive advantage. Because I've got a network here, you don't, so people will use my network.
Okay.
As, the country fills up and everyone's everywhere, then that's not a competitive advantage for anyone anymore.
Okay.
Now it's just a cost center. And now you've got to say, okay, well, let's be clever about this. Okay. Move the competition to the front end and say, okay, you've got 5 gigs over here for this price and so on, and you compete there, the consumer face. But I mean, another place where it happens is towers. So you now get, well, not now, it's been around for a while, but there are tower companies or mobile operators would sell all their tower infrastructure to a tower operator. Okay. And then the tower operator would be their assets, all of the towers. And then they would say to all the other operators, come and put your equipment on my tower.
Okay.
So those operators don't need to then have their own towers. So that saves them cost, saves them money for that. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I've never known anything about this world. This is so interesting to me. So you worked in telecom for many long time, and interesting that you saw the progression of the technology as well, from like just the cell phone to then to wireless and then fiber. So I guess what was it for you on a personal level that you decided, you know what, it's time for a change. It's time to leave this field, because you were in it for about what, 20 years?
20 plus years, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I got to a point where my kids are, university fees are paid. It's like, okay, okay, so yeah. And I thought, you know what, let me, because I've been wanting to do this for a long time, kind of, do my own thing. And that was kind of, okay, came to a point, in my career where it was feasible. I had a bit of runway. And I said, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it, right? And so, yeah, then I jumped in and started, and kind of started from scratch, basically, and, started learning digital marketing skills, how to build websites, learning SEO, all of those different things. So, yeah, that's kind of, and it's been a tough road. I mean, with the conversation we had the other day, well, if it was easy doing a startup, then, everyone would be doing it.
True.
It's not. There are times where you go and take a sneak peek at the LinkedIn jobs page, and,
it's very attractive sometimes.
Let's just go look there again. But then you carry on again and keep learning and keep improving. And that, to me, is probably the most satisfying thing about this whole journey is, as you go and you keep going and you keep going, your understanding of what you're doing yourself just deepens, right? And
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And then also the conversation we had the other day where I, looked at your landing page, and literally as I was, making the video, it's just, okay, this, and this. It's easy for me to see another person's positioning.
Yeah.
But to figure out my own positioning,
that's the hardest part.
It's taken me the longest time because you're standing, inside the forest. Yeah. You're standing and you can see everything, right? And you don't have that perspective of standing outside and then looking at, what's happening there, and because it's much easier to define it then, right? And a mistake I've seen many people make, and I've made numerous times, is, kind of leading with, who I am and the services that I'm offering instead of what it is that I do for other people. It's subtle, but it makes the whole difference, right?
When it comes, and the point I love the analogy you made about you're in the forest and you don't know you know where you want to go, but you have no idea, do I have to cut down the street, do I have to take a right, do I have to take a left? And the point you made about positioning. So I'm curious, so you've been doing this now for about 4 years.
Yeah.
When you started, how are you positioning yourself compared to now? Because I think reflecting on that transition is interesting, because I think a lot of people, like startup founders, are probably, even myself included, we're in, that early phase, and we're trying to adjust to that new phase where we probably should be heading.
Right. Look, I think, for me, it was an evolution as I learned more things, and I'd learn SEO. I'm like, oh my word, I'm an SEO guy now, right? And then the positioning starts to be around that. Right in the beginning, it was around consulting, because I come from a strategy background.
Exactly, yeah.
I thought, that's really, I can really add a lot of value with consulting, and and then started learning these digital marketing skills, and then, okay, combining that and websites, I can do that, SEO. And then, when you try and go out to market with that and nothing happens, then you're like, okay, something's not landing here, and then you start digging deeper. And where I am now, it's kind of, okay, let me just take a step back. The thing that I struggled with the most was, not trying to limit or not wanting to limit myself.
Limit yourself.
Yeah. So, kind of, I've got to shoot as broad as possible to get the maximum exposure, kind of thing. Until I learned that, and I shared with you the other day, someone clever said this on a podcast or something that I listened to. if you try and speak to everybody, you end up speaking to nobody.
Exactly.
Right? And when I saw that and I looked at my landing page at the time, I'm like, yeah, that's you. That's you. It's like, come on, man, wake up.
Yeah.
And then, I went through various iterations of, and I mean, one of the things that I picked up along the way is called email marketing,
Yeah.
and kind of figured out that whole thing because it's a whole big thing on its own, right? And then I thought, okay, let me, launch a separate kind of value proposition for that. But then you dive into that, then there's, a whole lot of complexity around that. So where I am now is I'm positioned to, help startups, seed stage startups to position themselves for funding and scaling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your journey is, I resonate with it a lot because even when I started, this happened by accident. This was not a choice. I always did want to do wanted to have my own business. Who would have thought that, I'd have a podcast and this would be it. But, thank God, it worked out. But the point you made about, like, one of the things that you said the other day when it comes to like all these different worlds that you're in, whether it's SEO, whether it's the digital marketing side, website creation, whatever, email marketing, each one of those is a world in itself. Yeah. And as an entrepreneur or like a solopreneur myself, when I look at the things I need to do for my business, it's, I experience the same things that you went through. I'm like, okay, I need to learn digital marketing. I should be posting. I need to write blogs. My website needs to be a certain way, and each one requires a significant amount of time and investment to understand how to do it. And I think that sometimes, speaking from my experience, and I think this is where a lot of early stage entrepreneurs struggle as well, is there's so much you need to do, so you keep getting pulled in all these different directions without maybe focusing. I met someone recently who was like, you want to start a business? All these things you said, yes, they're important, but at the end of the day, does it make money? Mm-hmm. That's your North Star. And then all of this is the stuff that you build alongside focusing on this. But I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, have drifted through our journeys.
Yeah, exactly that. To me, the biggest scoundrel amongst that group that you've mentioned is social media. Okay, because social media is visible. Everybody's like, look at my thing on social, and people are posting and so on. And the worst traction I've gotten out of everything I've tried is social media.
The worst traction?
The worst traction.
Interesting.
Right. Because it's so visible, people think it's hugely important. I'm not saying it's unimportant, but to your point, what makes money? What gains traction? What actually generates the leads? Yeah, social media, not much. For me, and clients that I've helped with that, I've struggled to really make it, really get a lot of traction.
Sure.
I mean, I had one client that, we did well, and we grew their, Facebook page 800% over 3 years or whatever. And that was largely through social media. But for the rest, it's been a struggle. Yeah. And it speaks to the point of you don't know what you don't know. True. So if you get stuck into, I'm going to do email marketing, just defining what email marketing is that's the first thing. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because there are broadly two types of email marketing. And if you don't understand the difference and you don't know, how to approach that, it's you're going to spend a lot of time just trying to figure that out, where, you should be doing that thing that brings the money.
True.
And then another thing, because I, come from a strategy background, where I spend a lot of time when I speak to startups is kind of help them to prioritize. Okay. So depending on who your audience is and where we find them, we're going to say, okay, maybe we're going to look at the SEO and email marketing and maybe social media in a third place. For others, we're going to say, let's lead with influencers and social media and, pay-per-click advertising, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And then obviously balance the budgets and all of that stuff. But it's, it's a big world. it's a big, big, big world, you know, so
Yeah.
to kind of figure out on your own.
So on the email marketing point, because this is a debate I've been having over the last, so my background's in sales too. So
Right.
I've done the whole email marketing campaigns, put them in the cadence, you know, this is it, the white papers, you know, all the what you run, that marketing thing or sales funnel that you run someone through. In my experience, it hasn't been very effective when at least at my jobs. It wasn't very effective in comparison to when I would just pick up the phone, even though it was cold. I tended to have more success in that way than I did with email marketing. Now, on the point you made about social media, is it the most effective thing for leads? Maybe not. However, it is still important for the more of a branding, you know,
100%.
having
For
that
brand
reference.
awareness, sure.
So
Yeah.
for all that stuff. But on the email marketing point, because you said something the other day which kind of blew my mind. So I've run Google ad campaigns in the past with agencies and myself. And you said something that 72% of Google ad campaigns not necessarily fail, but don't get you the results. Fail. You'd say fail. Completely.
They don't make money.
So could you tell? Because that was such a wake up call to me. Because in my experience, Google Ads was the way or the best way I've gotten leads, or other businesses I know have gotten leads so far. So. Is email marketing now having a resurgence in its importance? Like if I've got $1 million, am I going to put that into an email marketing campaign or some Google ads? You'd probably say email marketing.
I'll say it depends.
Fair.
You know,
It's
a safe consultant answer, right?
Yeah. No, but I'd love to tell us your thoughts around that.
Yeah. So firstly, around Google Ads. So you know Neil Patel,
of course, he's the best.
He's a big guy in our industry, right? And so the stat I quoted is a study that they did. Okay, is that 72% of pay-per-click advertising campaigns fail, right? So you spend more on advertising than what you make from the thing you're trying to advertise. And why is that? And what I mentioned to you the other day is that it's in my opinion, it's because the people that run those campaigns don't understand search intent.
Search intent.
Okay. So you think about pay-per-click advertising is about keywords, right? Now, when you go and gather your keywords that you're going to use in your campaign, the way I do that is I think through every keyword. I don't just go and say, okay, here's the top 50 keywords, copy paste and into Google Ads, and there you go. I go and look at every keyword and try and understand and interpret the search intent. Search intent being trying to understand the person that types in that keyword. What is it that they're looking for? What is it why are they using this keyword and not the other one? And you've got to be very, very clear in your own mind that the thing that you're advertising and the landing page and the messaging on your landing page, that this keyword you're going to target speaks to that search intent. If it doesn't, you're wasting your ad budget. Okay? That's it. So that's the one thing. The other thing is, Google is set up to make money. Google is in there. They're not primarily there to help you make money. They're primarily there to help themselves make money. So if you do not understand, Google Ads as an example, if you don't understand that well, the types of campaigns that you can use and how to set up your strategy and all of that, and you follow Google's recommendations, they're going to clear your budget as soon as possible.
Yeah.
You will see, I've had campaigns that the cost per click starts at around $4 or $5, okay? In a couple of months, it's $20, $30.
Wow.
I've had one that went to $90. The average price was around $10, $12, went to $90. It wiped the client's budget in a couple of days.
Wow.
Why is that? How? And there's no new competition in that space, or it's just the algorithms see, well, here's somebody that we can take and it takes it, So if you don't do your search intent well and you don't set up your campaigns well, yeah, you're going to have a hard time making money with Google Ads.
Yeah.
In terms of email advertising, I don't know what types of email advertising you did. Was it cold outreach? Or
Yeah, it would be,
okay.
cold outreach, or they had downloaded a white paper or something, something a bit warmer, but it would be a combination of both of those. Yeah.
So here's the thing, why I like email is that your email inbox is where people spend their time to work. That's where they earn their salary, okay? People still to this day, email, if you're in a corporate, you've got to check your email every day because that's where your boss communicates with you, your colleagues, your clients, and so on, okay? So if you can get into the inbox with a sensible message that's valuable for that person, you're doing them a favor. You're helping them improve their whatever they're trying to achieve. So that's the one thing. The other thing around email is that the volume of outreach that you can do, the cost per outreach, is a fraction of any other medium that I've come across, right? So you can reach 100,000 people, highly targeted. If everything else is in place, highly targeted prospects for a small amount of money. To reach that same number of people with Google Ads, with social media, with anything else, is going to cost you 10, 20, 50 times than what email costs you. So especially for startups, I found it's a very effective medium. Now, having said that, it's not for everybody. Okay. If your target market is not well defined, okay, if it's not easy to target them, if you don't know how to target them in terms of the job roles that you want to target, the industries and so on, then that's also a risk that you're taking. Okay, then potentially there's some other channels that are better. So and that's why I said earlier, it depends.
It depends, yeah. It
depends on whether the business that you're trying to help, whether this is appropriate for them and for the audience they're trying to speak to. If it is, in my view, there's nothing better.
Interesting. So on the balance of play, email marketing, again, it's very contextual, and different businesses, maybe different types of products need different types of marketing. Like if you're advertising a beauty product, social media is the one, rather than like an email about it. So, but the point you made, Herman, about, and this is, I think, where a lot of people struggle, myself included, which is, who is my target market? So that list of people that you were talking about, you can create a very premium list of highly targeted people that fit exactly the thing that you're offering. But if I don't know who that person is on the other side, how do I begin? What are the questions that I need to be asking myself, or startups should be asking ourselves, to start creating that, I guess you'd call it a customer persona, or so on? Because like in my business, for example, I have a podcast consulting business. From my perspective, it could be valuable to any business. However, like you said, if I think I can help any business, then I'm probably losing on the ones that I could really, really take to the next level.
Yeah, that's a very good question, because what I see often is, people jump into this creative process somewhere along the way. They don't start at the beginning.
That's so true.
They have a skill, they know how to code, and they say, hey, let's build an app. Okay. And because they know how to code, they think, well, that's valuable in itself. So then they get along, they start coding and building the app, and now the app is ready, and they say, well, it's this wonderful thing that I've built, let me go and sell it, because now I'm going to become very rich. And they take it to market and no one cares. Okay. And I see that often, and I think if you look at the stats, that's probably why most startups fail.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah. And where I like to start with that is, and this is part of the thing that when I get involved with a startup, this is where I start, is I go, and before we even look at how wonderful this product is, I like to go and see what the market is saying about something like this, about this thing that you're trying to achieve. Okay. And where I start is with keyword research.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And trying and kind of get a sense what people are searching for related to this app.
Sure.
Right? In that kind of research, you come across other companies that are doing similar things, right? It's competitive research, right?
Of course.
But where I see the value in that then is that you go and find the problem that people are trying to solve. Because a lot of apps are a solution for a problem that doesn't exist or doesn't exist in sufficient quantities to make it a business, you know? So you want to go and find a problem that a lot of people have, and it's painful for them, and there's not a good way currently for them to solve that problem. Okay. And then you would go and say, okay, here's the problem. Here's how we solve the problem with our app. What should we do to make the app that we currently have, or if you haven't built it yet, how do we build this app that it, you know, addresses that problem in the way that people are talking about it online? Okay. If you go to market with a crappy product, but it solves a real problem, you're going to make much more money than the person that's built the perfect product with no one that cares about it, you know? So it is so important, more than the technical quality of the product itself, is there a demand for this thing, right? I mean, it's like if you go and build, let's take an example. You know, one of the first niches that came out when, you know, these apps started coming out in 20 years ago is online accounting, okay?
Sure.
Right? There's tons of those apps, but there are apps that are brilliant at this. Xero is one, QuickBooks, there are many others, right? And they've learned over 20 years, or for however long they exist, what it is that small business owners, who's their target audience, what they require, what they need, you know, what the features that are important to them. They've figured those things out, right? If you come now in 2024 and say, hey, I've got an idea, I'm going to build an online app, you know, accounting app. That's what you're up against.
Yeah.
How are you going to compete in that space? You know, I'm not saying there's no you know chance to make something there, but you've got to go and then find a sub niche in, let's say, small businesses that is still struggling with the products that are out there already, and they're struggling because, you know, they need to load something that's not available at the moment, and you go and build that thing for them, you know, then yeah, there's a chance. But if you're going to go up front and say, hey, I'm going to build something that's like QuickBooks, forget it.
Yeah.
You don't have the brand recognition, you know, you're 20 years behind the game. Those markets are done as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You know. So that to me is probably the most important thing, you know, if you want to kind of build a startup, is go and understand the problem. Go and understand that, take time to really take time to understand the problem, analyze it, dissect it, validate the problem, you know, go and ask people, right? Is this really a problem? And people always come up with a plan how to make things work, right?
Yeah,
it's like, no, yeah, but I have a spreadsheet over here and it works, you know? And then you're like, okay, can I make something better than the spreadsheet, you know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I want to start on the point you mentioned about you need to really dive in and dissect the market and do your research to understand the validity of a problem. The question then I start to ask, I'm like, let's say I've done my research, I've done everything Herman has said. Then the next question I ask myself is, how do I know that this is like, there's a demand for this? Because there's some businesses you could have a couple clients here and there, but maybe it can't go bigger than that, you know, and maybe it's the size of the market is too small for what I'm doing. So the question then I start to ask myself is, how do I know that now I'm like, no, I think there is a demand for this and I should, continue down this path?
Right. So I think that comes, part of that discovery process when you're doing your competitive analysis is kind of seeing the volumes of, inquiries. So let's look at your podcast and consulting business, okay?
Sure.
If we go and do keyword research and we go and search for podcast consulting services, okay, and there are 5 queries a month for that, we're going to say, yeah, maybe that's not the right positioning because no one's looking for that service.
Sure.
And what I love about keyword research, it's an objective measure of what the world is doing out there.
It's like a snapshot.
It's a snapshot of reality. It's absolutely fantastic to have that market intelligence available. You don't have to start from shooting in the dark. You don't have to. And that, if we go and search and we say, and we search the same thing and there's 10,000 queries, like, people are looking for this thing. People want this thing, Okay. And then we go and search contextually around that, what other things are they looking for? And out of that, a value proposition will emerge, okay? To your question then is, how do I know, whether this, you don't know. That's why it's called, that's it, you don't know. Yeah. You can reduce the risk as much as you can by doing this kind of research, but at some point you've got to jump. You've got to say, okay, I've done, what I know humanly possible. I've looked at all of the things, and I believe with all of this, I think it's a worthwhile risk to take.
Sure.
Right? And then you jump in. And then you go and build something, and you put your value proposition together, and the moment when you will know that it's actually working is with somebody that you don't know says yes. Okay, not your friends and not your family, or like, hey, because they love you and they want to see the best. Like, we love your product, but it's not objective. But someone on the internet that's never met you, they come across your product or your service, and like, I want to talk to you. Then you're on the right track.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then obviously when people start paying for that thing, then you're like, okay, people like it, and then the way you improve that product then is to get the feedback, to ask people. As soon as they have an experience with you, ask them, hey, what can we improve? What did you like? What didn't you like? And then you iterate and you make it better and better and better.
That's so interesting that, for example, I never knew until this conversation, I knew keywords were important, but I don't think like even Neil Patel, who you mentioned, I'm subscribed to Answer the Public. I've done the keyword research, so I've seen, the cost per clicks, the volumes and all that. However, I still, based on that, this is a personal thing, I haven't been able to convert that intelligence into like an understanding for myself. I'm like, okay, I have all this data, but I don't know what does that mean?
How to convert it into intelligence. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And that is... to me, I love it. I mean, I use SEMrush. It's my go-to tool. I've been using it for 4 years. I mean, I'm really deep into it. And what you find there is, if you go deeply into a niche and you start looking at all the different angles and all the different topics in that niche, you can start seeing patterns, and you can see, okay, well, there's a group of people that are very interested in the how-to, of this thing, and some other people are interested in the history of the thing. Let me give you an example. So I did a training course in Cambodia for a company there, and I used the example of wine. Okay. And I started, and I said, because I was talking about search intent, and I started, and I had my screenshots there, and I started with just the word wine. Okay, in Cambodia. So you research different markets, right? So in Cambodia, okay, wine. And all of the related keywords that came out of there, from that research, I unpacked that if you wanted to, do something in the wine business in Cambodia, there was a big group of people who were interested in how to store wine, okay, because it's a hot climate and humid. So there was a lot of queries around, wine cellars and wine fridges and wine coolers. There was a whole, a lot of inquiries around wine glasses and the etiquette of wine. There was, surprising to me, there was a whole lot of queries around the history of wine and wine regions, where wine comes from. Okay. So that's the kind of market intelligence that you get. Is that, if I wanted to make a wine website in Cambodia, that's my framework. I'm going to have a shop where I potentially resell products fulfilled by Amazon or whatever, all these wine coolers and whatnot. I'm going to have a section around the etiquette of drinking wine and what food and wine pairings potentially. You can have another section around, the wine regions of France, the wine regions of Argentina, and so on and so on. Okay, and that's not. I wouldn't have come up with that by myself. That's what keyword research showed me. And the way I do it, I literally go and do the keyword research. I pull it into a spreadsheet. And then it's a manual exercise, and you go, okay, this looks like this kind of intent, and you start grouping them, and you start, dissecting them, and then over time it kind of reveals, okay, here's a theme, here's another theme, and so on and so on. And then if you're looking at content creation, there's your content plan. There you go.
This is what people are asking for, right? So create the content to match that, right? Something you said, and you just repeated it again, Herman, is search intent. Now, I don't think I've ever really thought about, like when I'm searching for something on Google, like what am I doing? Am I searching to buy? Am I searching for information? Am I searching to compare?
Right.
But that is so, like knowing that now to me on a personal, that's so useful because it's a different lens to look at what are people looking at, That's why when you look at all the big search engines now, your Google, the YouTubes, TikToks, it's now with that knowledge, I have a new frame to look at. But all this work that you're talking about, that is super important. So I'm just going to use myself as an example. When I started this, it was by accident. I had been doing my own podcast, and then people started reaching out to me to ask. So I'm like, great. So one thing has led to another, alhamdulillah, we've gotten to the place that we're at now. Now we're trying to go to that next level. So if I reflect on my journey, this important, crucial process that you should probably do at the beginning, I'm doing it like a year in.
Sure.
Now, I think, because that sometimes happens with startups. You weren't planning to do something, one thing leads to another, but you will reach a ceiling that without doing this work is going to be very hard to get to that next stage. So the question I then start to think about is, as startups, as founders, why is this work or this area of work the part that seems to be, how do I say this, given or not given as much attention,
left behind
in that building process as it probably should, by the sounds of it?
That's a good question, because I think it's probably various factors that impact that. It's first of all, it's a skill set. People have a certain skill set, and you focus on the thing that you know, right?
True.
And then again, you don't know what you don't know.
Very true.
You think, well, if I build this wonderful app, everything is going to explode. I'm going to be a unicorn. And it's kind of it's an organic process, like you've experienced now.
Yeah.
You went on this journey like, hey, I'm going to do this thing, and you get at some point like, yeah, it's not working as I'm missing something here, and then you start exploring. So I think it's a very organic process. People that come from a marketing perspective will start there, and then they'll I know how to sell this, but now I don't have a product. Let me go find the product guy. So I think it's just the way it is. I don't think there's ideally you want to get this frame of mind together with the app frame of mind at the same point, but it just doesn't work like that always. And I think that's why you know, this startup community that we're involved in, Founders Connect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a wonderful thing that Ronnie and the guys are doing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Shout out Ronnie and the team and everyone.
Yeah, well done, guys. Ronnie, well done. You guys are doing an amazing job with the community. Because it brings different skill sets together.
Very true.
You know,
very true.
And the WhatsApp group we're part of, that's how we met, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, and I was just there, here's a guy with an interesting question, looked at your website, here's some ideas, you know. No expectation that, you know, like, no, we had to help each other, you know? And now we're having a conversation.
Exactly, yeah.
You know? So I think it's just an organic process, and people, startup founders, would be well served to get involved in communities like this.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna short circuit that learning journey, and they're gonna learn these things quicker because they're gonna have to learn them or get somebody to help them with them eventually.
Exactly.
Because you cannot skip these things.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so happy you said that, because that brings me on to my next point. Now, there's a time that you have to kind of take a step back, at least in my experience, and realize that, okay, all these things are important, but taking the time to learn all of these things and to get to the level you probably need to be at to do them effectively is going to take time. But at the same time, I think founders sometimes struggle with that concept of, I don't know, maybe it's an ego thing, whatever it is, that, you know, I have to do everything. Yeah. I have to do everything and alone, and only then will it feel like I have done it.
I know that feeling, man.
You know? Yeah.
I know that feeling, yeah.
So but what I like, and from our conversations and from the conversations I've had with people, sometimes you do need that help, because people know, like you said repeatedly, you don't know what you don't know. And there's, even in our short conversation that we had, you pointed out so many blind spots that I wasn't really aware of. So when it comes to, I guess, either when you're doing a startup, either looking for a partner, a co-founder, starting to, maybe I need someone for marketing, doing all that, is that, because also you don't want to, what's the word? You don't want to run before you can crawl. Mm-hmm. So I still do think you do need help for sure, but there is a phase or a process that you kind of, or at least maybe it's just because it's my experience, you kind of have to go through alone before you get to that stage. What would you say? What would be your perspective?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, that, because, you know, you have to grow a bit of a thick skin, you know, when you go through the startup process. You've got to suffer. You've got to feel the pain, you know, because if you don't learn to deal with pain, it's going to be a long and hard journey for you. If you just kind of outsource things like, you know, other people can solve these problems for me, you know, you're never going to learn resilience, and you're going to run out of money before you get to a point that's feasible for you, you know. So I think I think if you've put it well, you know, you've got to first go and suffer. You first got to go and try and do some things for yourself. And then, you know, when you get to a point where it makes sense, and it would be different for every startup.
Sure.
You know, that's, I think I have something to talk about now. I have a product to show, or I have a market that's shown interest in this product. Then potentially, you know, okay, go and find the help that you need.
Sure.
Okay. But then also think about the different levels of help. The kind of conversation we had, okay, took me, you know, 10 minutes to make the video. We have a pleasant hour conversation. It wasn't a big investment for me, okay, but I think you got some value out of that.
Absolutely.
Right? So I helped you, okay, and you can take that initial information that you got, like, okay, now as I'm going and suffering through the rest of my process, I know about this stuff now, and I know I need to consider it.
Yeah.
And then when you get to a next level, like, okay, now I need to really get that help.
Yeah.
Now I need to implement.
Yeah.
So again, that speaks to the startup, the Founders Connect community, is don't be shy. And that would be my advice to people is, don't be shy to ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question, right? True. And, you know, the startup, like, I'm going to figure it all out, you know. Yeah, good luck with that, man. But it's you don't need to suffer that much, you know. It's kind of just ask, you know, because there are people that are willing to share freely, and you might just get years of experience, you know, and you get it in 5 minutes. And the thing is then to know what you're getting, because
exactly,
it's easy to dismiss that. This guy's just talking, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But if you don't know where it comes from, yeah. So I think it's a combination then, you know, kind of. You've got to suffer, but then at some point, when it makes sense, and you will know instinctively. You will know.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm at that point now. I need to help. I need help.
No, absolutely. I love what you said about the different levels of help. That's not something I ever thought of. You know, I think help, I'd like hire someone but like you said, there are different levels of help. Maybe you don't have the financial resources to get the level of help that maybe you think you need right now. But we can start doing, I can get a little bit of help on this thing, and maybe this is
for free.
Exactly, and maybe we can build that up from there. Maybe this person becomes part of the team.
Right.
So the other day, my wife and I were having a conversation, and so all this experience that I've gone through so far, I watched a lot of podcasts, read a lot of books, whatever. I love doing what I'm doing, not just because I'm good at it and I love the industry and I love these kind of conversations, but because there's a freedom that comes with it that I love. And the freedom when I talk about freedom is I have partners that I bring in for certain projects, but I don't have, for example, employees that I don't have that worry, that cost, that salary that I have to, you know, pay someone and so on, which to me has been a very freeing thing because it's allowed me to maneuver the way I want. However, from the research I've done is because what I offer is a service, and in service businesses, it's time-based. You only have so much time as a human being in a day. You still need to sleep, you still need to eat, you still need to do all these things. So you're gonna hit a ceiling at some point. So I think I was naive in thinking that I could get to the level I would want to get to alone. And she brought up the other day, she's like, so is your plan to build a company like with employees and so on? I'm like, I think it's an internal thing that I'm going through. I'm like, I do, but I want it to happen organically. I'm like, when I get to the point that I have not even a second, I can't take on another one more client, then I would do it. But based on our conversation, sometimes it's maybe smarter to put those people in place earlier, because that might help you get to where you're trying to go a little bit faster. But I think when it comes to startups, a lot of people still, like when we think about funding, like transitioning the conversation over to the funding and so on, a question I always ask myself is, okay, you might need funding to get funding. Why do you need funding? Funding to run the business to get you to stage 2, right? But I think a lot of times people are seduced by, we have raised hundreds of millions and we need to raise to grow, instead of taking a step back and bootstrapping it until you get to a point that now we have to, otherwise we cannot continue.
It's, you know, the earlier you fund, the more you're giving away. You know, that's kind of the bottom line there. The point. What was the point you were making earlier? I wanted to say something around. What's the difference between having your own business and building a business? Because where you are now is you've kind of created a job for yourself, right? But it's not the same thing as building a business, because as you said, having a time-based kind of setup is not scalable.
Yeah.
Right? If you're selling services and your services are valuable and you only have so many hours in the day, and therefore, I mean, this is a very good example of how do you productize a podcast consulting service.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right, and I think that's the conversation we had the other day.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Is how do we productize this?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's not scalable. Otherwise, it's going to be wonderful and free and so on and so on. But then the other point around employees, I mean, I'm the same. I don't want employees. I use contractors.
Sure.
Right? It's a difference also. You pay somebody to do something, but it's not, because taking on that employee kind of thing, I mean, at some point, if the business gets to a certain point, you're going to have to do it, and that's fine. Yeah. Because then, it's a different animal altogether. But we're talking about the startup space.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you that the longer you can stay lean, the longer you can bootstrap, the longer you can push and, every minute of your day into your business, the better for you, because it teaches you that resilience.
Yeah.
You figure out things that you wouldn't have figured out otherwise. And then at the last moment, I agree with you. Then, okay, come on, help me here. But you do only that thing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, so that's what I wanted to say about that. And in terms of the funding, I think the longer you can delay funding, people think, let's just get the funding. But that brings its own stress.
Of course.
Right? Because now you've got people watching you. People whose money you've taken, you've promised the world, and now you've got to deliver. And if you're taking that money before and that's where our previous conversation comes into play.
Exactly.
If you're taking that money and saying, hey, I've got this wonderful idea, and they believe you, but you haven't done the keyword research, you haven't got a product market fit, all of those things, you're going to have very, very difficult conversations later on, because this thing's going to fail, right? Because you did not do that foundational work.
Yeah.
That's got nothing to do with the app. It's got everything to do with the market and what the market's looking for.
Yeah.
So, I think it's important to kind of, do that as much as you can on your own before you go out and find money.
Yeah, because, you see all these things in the news on LinkedIn. This company raised 100 million. Yeah, but no one checks in where's that company in a couple of years, right? Are they still there 5 years later, or what? And there's this great show that I used to watch called Silicon Valley, and it was all about these guys trying to build an app and make it in Silicon Valley. So it just shows you that that's what it taught me. Like watching that show, lots of people we raised whatever, and then the next day he's out of a job. The investors kicked them out of the company and so on. Because the point you made is so true. When you take that money, it's not just, it sounds nice. Like on paper, it sounds great. But
huge responsibility, man.
That's to the people you need to answer to now and to deliver to. That brings a whole different, set of challenges and so on. So when it comes to funding and raising capital and so on, there's people, obviously, best case scenario, you want a strategic investor, someone who's it's not just their money that you want their expertise, their network, their connections, and so on. And this kind of brings us on to what we were talking about earlier off camera, when it comes to pitching and creating pitch decks for fundraising and so on. So I wanted to ask you, because this is something that I'm starting to think about now for, in the coming years. This is stuff that I need to be thinking about. When I'm creating a pitch deck, is it basically taking this entire conversation we've had and solidifying it into something digestible? Or what are the key components from your experience that these are the things that have to be in the pitch deck to give you the biggest chance of success? Doesn't guarantee it, but it makes it the most attractive, let's say.
Yeah, so I'm involved in another business in Europe, and where we do exactly that, we help companies with preparing pitch decks. And what we've done there, the site's called getfundingready.com.
Okay.
And basically what that is we've developed a template, a pitch deck template. And when I did the development of that template, I looked at all of the different big funding houses and Y Combinator and all of those guys, and they all have a formula.
That's true.
And in essence, in my view, what a pitch deck is, it's a sales page. It's a multi-page sales page. It's a landing page basically, where you're trying to sell something to somebody.
Yeah.
Okay? And what I see more often than not is that people think when they get to this point, it's the investor is just about the numbers and the deal and the IRR and people think, and I thought that. I mean, I raised in 2009 when I was in Mozambique. I was working for a small startup or a small internet service provider, and the company was really struggling, and I raised $5 million. And I knew nothing about this world. I knew absolutely nothing. Okay, and Maputo is not Silicon Valley, right? I mean, we were a couple of guys there working for this company, and I mean, the owner was treating it like a piggy bank. He's just taking cash out of the business. It was a really tough environment. We heard about CCOM coming, the fiber cable, and we're like, yeah, we want to get on that cable, but we need external investors because we need to kind of, turn this company around. And this was my pitch deck. I built a website, okay, small website, a username and password access, and I Googled investment funds, okay, around the world. And I started sending them this thing. I was like, hey, this is who I am, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. And I mean, looking back at it now, it's like, yeah, I can't believe anybody invested in that. But what I learned from that experience and what I believe, to answer your question, is people, when you do your pitch deck, you've got to, first of all, before you explain to your potential investors, the numbers or, the operational plan, you've got to convince them why it's a good idea to invest in your business. And that's got everything to do with what we've spoken about. Yeah. In terms of the problem solution fit. What problem is what problem are you fixing and how are you fixing it? What other kind of, things are there for people to fix the same problem? And obviously in the pitch deck, you're not going to dig into the deep detail that comes into your investment memorandum. But they've got to learn, they've got to see on the first page exactly what the problem is that you're solving and why the solution that you're proposing is better than anything else in the market. Yeah. So I like to look at a pitch deck, and on the cover of the pitch deck, you make a big promise. You make a bold statement or a big promise, and you then use the rest of the pitch deck supporting the claim that you made, proving the claim that you made. Okay. So it's about the why. Okay, why is this important? And then there's a formula that we use, taking different things. And it's kind of, try to kind of build it like a story. You kind of think, okay, once a person's seen this, what is the next thing they're likely to think about? And then that's the next slide. And kind of, lead it through the thing like that. And we've had success. We've had some companies get funded through using our template and our formula, and some guys in Africa went and, I think raised $300,000 or $400,000, using that template. So other people obviously busy in the process still, but it's speaking of that, I told you earlier, I'm busy building a site now where we kind of, doing that in a more structured manner, where we have the pitch deck, as a landing page, and then investors or intermediaries can then request access and get access to the investment memorandum. Yeah. Which we hope can kind of scale that thing, because it's a very manual, old school, relationship driven kind of environment still. So
no, for sure. And on the point you made, Herman, about having that big bold statement, and because the question I started thinking about is on the example of finding leads and finding investors, I think are two different things. I think you can use the same, what you're trying to do with Pitchmaster is use a similar approach to get not the investor himself, but the guy who knows the investor or so on. Yeah. So what advice, I guess, because I think this is something that's not maybe talked about enough. Where do finding leads, I can create that persona. Sure. I think you could probably do it for an investor as well, but finding investors, when I think about where do I find an investor, I wouldn't even know the first place to start looking.
Google, man.
Really, it's just
No, I'm kidding. It's just like,
So if I'm my business, I'm looking for investors. If you were gonna give me some advice, where should I be looking first?
I think once your pitch deck is in place, you start close to home. You start with the people that you know. You start in your network. That's the most sensible place to go. And hopefully from there, people know people, and kind of, like I said, it's very relationship driven.
Yeah.
And the thing about investors is you've got to realize is, they're bombarded with pitch decks.
I'm
right?
sure.
They are bombarded with pitch decks. So if you don't stand out, you got a couple of seconds, you got literally 3 or 4 seconds to impress this person, for them to turn the page to you. So that's why, that cover is so important. And what I did for in Mozambique with that startup, I Googled, and it's a cold approach, right? But I then went and here's an investment fund. Okay, here's a guy's email address. But going through that process, it's tedious. It takes time, and now you're trying to build a startup, and now you're trying to do that. So startups founders that have gone through this process will tell you, raising capital probably takes a year out of your time, to successfully raise capital. If you're doing it yourself. So, using intermediaries, if you know somebody in the market that kind of, that's their job, that's what they do, they go and find funders for you. That's probably the most sensible way to go, They're obviously, going to charge a success fee off the funding that you raise, which is fair. Which is industry practice.
Yeah.
But that would probably be where I would start.
Yeah. And like you said, I think when it comes to investors in particular, it is it's very relational. You really need to not just sell yourself, but develop a strong connection with that investor so that you're both kind of in it together, not him above you, which he is though, because he's the one giving you the money, but to approach it maybe on a similar level probably gives you the best chance, not only for success, but that journey. Because there's going to be, even with his money, there's going to be ups and downs, and you know it, and they know it too.
Right.
So being super selective on who that investor is like you said, absolutely crucial. From the sounds of it to me, Herman, because I know with Changemastrs, you offer a lot of different services, to help startups, seed startups like myself and like others get to that next stage. And then Pitchmasters is that new thing that the new evolution of that, which is, all right, now we've gotten us to level 1. All right, now we need the money to get to level 2. So to me, you can tell me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're building, or you're trying to build a startup accelerator. Would that be fair to say?
I guess, I've never thought about it like that, but I guess,
Yeah.
I guess that's what we're building, Yeah, so with Changemastr, it's really that, there are 3 parts for me, okay? So there's the positioning part, that's the first part.
Yeah.
Which involves, that research that we spoke about, the landing pages, the kind of competitive positioning of the business, right? And then the second part is the funding, which is Pitchmastr. And then the third part is scaling. It's just where we've got the money now, let's go to market in a big way.
Yeah.
Right? And then it becomes about digital marketing.
Exactly.
It becomes about email marketing and SEO and all of that stuff. So, and then in my case, then it's back to Changemastr. So, so that's kind of what we're doing. Yeah, but I've never thought about it like that.
Just from what you were saying, it sounds to me, because it's from early stage and you're taking me through that, you're accelerating my growth, or that my learning, or the building of my business to that whatever stage I'm trying to get it to. Herman, I have one last question for you. This is a question I ask all my guests. Actually, last 2 questions. The first one I'd like to ask, looking back either professionally or personally, when I ask you the question, what are you most proud of for yourself? What would you say?
Should have given me some time to think about this one. What am I the most proud of? I think sticking it out. kind of not giving up, you know, on this journey, because it's hard. And I'm not I'm not in my 20s anymore, you know. So I'm early 30s, by the way.
Yeah,
so
yeah, of course, absolutely, yeah, 30 and young.
You know, so kind of just, you know, keeping at it, I think is probably something I'm proud of, you know, that, and it's not there, where you think you were going to be at this point, but you can see the progression, and you can see it's growing and it's getting there and so on. So yeah, I'm proud of that.
That's I respect that a lot, and you know, I think everyone can speak from their own experiences to keep going. But also, what I appreciate about you is you have this desire to learn and this thirst to try and do things. So because, and there's going to be, like you said, the past 4 years you've learned, you know, so much.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process, and that is the motivation to keep you going. Because when you learn something, I'm similar in that way. When I learn something new, I'm like, okay, what can I do with this? But I don't know yet. But someday, you know, it would come in handy.
Right.
And for my last question, Herman, what is the message that you'd like everyone to take home with them today?
So I think, you know, the startup journey is tough, and the balance between going at it yourself and asking for help, it's kind of try and find a balance there, and join Founders Connect, I suppose, is my message.
Yeah, for sure.
Join the startup community, because the value you're going to get out of that is going to supersede anything you can figure out on your own over 3 years. You know, it's instant access to a lot of expertise, which will make your journey as a startup founder much easier.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Thank you, Herman, for the time you took to even just help me. I'm so excited for for phase 2 and what we're going to be able to do together. I think there's, you know, a lot of potential. Awesome. Thank you for just giving me a whole refreshment on startups and help. And because I think these are questions that not only I'm thinking about, I know everyone in our community has either gone through or is thinking about at some point, and not just in our community, but any startup in the world. So thank you for the advice. Thank you for making things clearer. And yeah, I just appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Khaled. Thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure.
I'm very proud to be your first guest in the studio.
Yes, first guest in the new studio. Damn right. Yes, sir.
And I'm excited to see where you're going to take your startup. So
thank you.
Good luck in your journey.
Thank you, Herman. Guys, to everyone listening, thank you so much. Please make sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe to the podcast on all channels. Hope it helps. And as always, guys, hope it helps. Peace.